15.
And hello, everybody. We are going live. You guys work with me. We are excited about it. Turn on your radios. And, of course, we are on Facebook Live as well. Philly's best R&B and throwbacks, 105.3 WDAS, home of the Holiday Jam. Frankie Darcell with you. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me invite back into the studio. I am so glad to have my guest with me. It is Ebonee, Benson, and also Andrew Wyatt from Purpose PR, of course, the representatives for Mr. Bill Cosby. And, so we can get to the conversation. First of all, it was interesting, Andrew, because you said to me, first of all, this is an exclusive. Right. I know that media from around the country have wanted to have this conversation with you guys. And you said you want to do it here at WDAS, first of all.
Yes, we wanted to do it here because your show is so profound and you let us get out the truth. You didn't give us any special favors, but we got the truth and the facts out to the listeners. And it went all over the world. And when I mean all over the world, overseas, we got messages. And even Ebonee can jump in about that as well.
Absolutely. My DMs on Instagram, messages on Facebook, people have been reaching out saying they didn't know this information, they didn't have this information, and they were thankful for you giving us that platform to be able to explain everything in detail about what's been happening with this case.
Yeah.
And a show that's representative of us. So we wanted to give you the exclusive. No one has it. No one has heard about our meetings with Mr. Cosby for the first time yesterday.
On Friday is the first approval outside his attorneys. You guys are the first to see Mr. Cosby. It's estimated about 21 days. His first 21 days in prison.
Right.
How is he doing?
He's doing great.
He
looks great. He looks great. His mind is strong. He looks strong. He's healthy. He's just ready for us to continue fighting and doing what we're doing out here.
And I love what he said. He said, this is the most amazing experience in my life. He said, because I'm getting to hear these stories and the messages that I was spreading throughout the community. Now I'm spreading it in this institution where they call themselves residents, not inmates.
So Mr. Cosby refers to the inmates as residents.
As residents.
So we're going to talk coming up in just a little bit. I want to take your phone calls online as well at WDASFM.com, on Facebook, whatever your questions are. And of course, you can call us as well, 215-263-1053, 877-894-1053 if you're in the tri-state area. Ebonee, Benson, and Andrew Wyatt, my guests from Purpose PR. And here's the question. What did you expect when you went to see Mr. Cosby for the very first time, after all of the coverage, after 2 trials, and moving forward? But then he walks into the room. 1, did he know that you were coming? And 2, once you arrived, what was that first conversation like? And I want to hear your real, which you've been real, but your real response of what the expectation was and what happened after seeing him now incarcerated for 21 days. We're going to talk about that coming up in just a little bit. Definitely join us on Facebook. And, of course, we want to hear from you, taking your phone calls as well. We're 105.3 WDAS.
50 years of opportunity.
Now, first of all, I want to say hello to everybody. Let me say hello to Frank, who is checking in, Kenneth, Sharice as well, and Tanya. We're going to talk more about that coming up. But when you went to the prison and there was an opportunity for you to kind of gather yourself, for both of you, I'm sure, you've spent a lot of time with Mr. Cosby over the last couple of years, particularly you, Andrew, and you've gotten to know him as well, Ebonee. What was the expectation, and what did you see when you arrived at the prison?
Well, look, when my expectations were to see a person who wasn't doing well, stressful. You know, he's 81 years old. So in my mind that morning, it was antsy. And when we got to the prison, we saw this fortress in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a farm country, and it's a fortress. And we're saying, why is he here? I know I'm saying to myself, why is he here? Barbed wire fence everywhere. You know, he's not a threat to society. So that went through my mind, and then we got to the facility. It's very clean, well-kept facility, newly built facility. So seeing him, you know, when the process is so amazing. You have to give your ID, you have to go through, you know, security checks and that kind of stuff. But when they finally let the iron doors up and you go through another set of doors, and he is sitting in a room waiting for us. He didn't know we were coming, and to see the back of his head, and you could see his strength, the way he was sitting upright like a king. You know, it made me feel good seeing the back of his head. And I'll let Ebonee jump in.
I didn't know what to expect, honestly. He had gotten phone privileges, and he tried to call me once before, and I live in Alabama, so sometimes the service isn't the best, so the call didn't actually go through. So the only way we knew that he tried to call was from a call list. So I definitely was very anxious to see him, knowing that he had tried to call. I haven't had a chance to hear his voice. Andrew is more used to talking to him every single day, multiple times a day, multiple hours a day. I was more of every other day, every couple of days, but still going this long after being involved with this in the magnitude that we have been, it was a very anxious feeling. I didn't eat anything the entire one. I honestly didn't eat until we had dinner with you last night. So it was nerve-wracking because we knew we had gotten the official clearance, but we didn't know what we were going to experience when we actually got there. As Andrew said, we pulled up. The place it's a beautiful facility, but it's massive. Of course, people recognize who we are, and then, of course, we have to say who we're there to see. So them trying to arrange to figure out how to get us in, and us then going through all the next steps of clearance, it was just nerve-wracking. And I didn't feel relief until, like Andrew said, till we got in the next area, and I saw the back of his head and saw that he was sitting up, and I didn't even say anything when they opened the door. I asked first if I could hug him, and then she said yes, and the first thing I did was gave him a hug, and he recognized me from my hair.
So he had no idea at the time that you all were coming to visit?
No, he had no clue. He had no clue Mrs. Cosby wanted it to be a surprise for him. And when she hugged him, he said, "Oh, look at you," or something. And then I hugged him. And it was a great hug because, I've been with him so long and being around him and not hearing his voice and, not having him call one time. He didn't call. So to see him, how strong he was, and the first thing was like, man, your skin look good. I want to move it. And he just looked fantastic, looked strong, healthy, and he was like, have a seat on my little furniture, because the furniture was so little. So he made us feel like we were at home. And
there are those that would say that, and have said, how is he going to adjust? He's been a multimillionaire for a number of years. How is he going to be able to adjust to this new lifestyle? How would you respond to that?
I think before Mr. Cosby was a millionaire, he was a poor black person right here in Philadelphia. So I don't think you ever forget being poor, having to go without, having to live on bare minimum. And then also, this facility is very professional. The one thing he spoke about was the fact that they're doing their jobs, and he is following along with the rules. It's not a hard process for him because, as he talked about, he's been in the military before. He doesn't have an issue following what needs to be done in order for him to do his time until appeals drop and things like that.
All right. We'll do some of that on the back end, just some of what we've heard. But I want to address now that you all were the first outside of his attorneys to have an opportunity to sit with Mr. Bill Cosby. So over the weekend and over the last week or two, there are some things that supposedly happened. Saturday Night Live as well did a skit. Can you talk about some of the things you may have heard that may have happened to Mr. Cosby and what the realities and truths are?
Well, here's the truth. No hot dog was thrown at him.
Okay, so there was a story.
There was a story on Radar Online that someone threw a hot dog bun and he slipped. Then there was another story of a chicken patty. And then there was a story about Wendy Williams calling Mrs. Cosby. All false.
And of him falling down the steps.
All false. There are no steps. And so, and they don't serve chicken patties there. So
I'm sure some of the prisoners will say, we like the chicken patties, but they don't have chicken patties on the Pennsylvania menu.
Right. No, this is a young person who befriended us, who works for Radar Online. His name is Nick, and young constituents, and he got a job with Radar Online, and he was close to us, and he just started making up these rumors. It's unfortunate, but that happens when you let people in who have an agenda, and that's okay. But Mr. Cosby laughed about it. He said, look, man, they don't have no chicken patties in here. And he said, we said, what is it like? He said, he described his bag. He's about thick inch of steel. He said, you tell attorney 22, he calls him 22, Tom Larkin out of Birmingham. He said, tell him he lied. He's a lying dog. There is hot water. And so it's like you push the button and then the water comes down, it's hot, and you got 2 minutes to lather up and then push it. So yeah, he's doing fine.
All right. Anything that you wanted to share, Ebonee, about his stay? What some of the perceptions people have had, some of the stories that they've told, and what the truths are?
Same thing. The stories that I've heard were the hot dogs, the chicken patties. As we said, they don't even have those things on the menu at that particular institution, so that can be thrown out of it. He didn't spend any time in the infirmary. Any time he does spend in the infirmary is for them to do their normal health checks that they do for all inmates, and then he is also still within his first 30 days, so he's still in a processing phase. So there's no infirmary, there's no falling down the steps, no chicken patties, no hot dogs. Mr. Cosby is doing great. He's strong. He knows that his team is out here working, so he feels great. And
that's what he talked about. He said, "Look, we got a new team of lawyers now. They were replaced by Brian Perry and Barbara Zimlock out of a firm out of Harrisburg. Now, Brian Perry was brought in to oversee the Judicial Review Board investigation of Judge O'Neill that Mrs. Cosby personally filed. She hired Brian Perry to represent her, though she was so impressed with him, and they attended the sentencing and what they had to say. So we have a new set of attorneys, and they're great, and Mr. Cosby loves them. He loves talking about them, and that's what we talked about. We talked about the case. We talked about the truth. We talked about him being in there, hearing other prisoners' stories. You know, it's that psychology part of him where he takes you into his laboratory and he's telling them, look, you don't have to swear. You don't have to curse. This is what you do. This is how you handle yourself. So he's giving those same lessons that he was given in his tours and when he visited colleges and universities across America.
All right, so I'm going to take some questions as well. You can post your questions on Facebook and we'll read them. One of the questions is, we talked about accommodations for Mr. Cosby. You've talked about Mr. Cosby being blind. First, we want to ask you how he's coming along, and you did say that there is a trustee that's working with him. That's first part of the question. And the second question, are there any accommodations? Is he in general population, or is he in a special unit, or is he in some kind of segregation?
Mr. Cosby has not been moved to general population yet. I don't think that's a decision that the prison has made at this point. Right now, he is in an area by himself. He does have a trustee, and still he is in a maximum secure facility. So around the clock, correction officers. So he is in an area by himself.
And plus, he
nothing special.
Right, nothing special. Himself. Guards, he know them by name. They've memorized. He's memorized their name, and they'll tell him walk forward, and he'll walk forward on their command, their voice, and grab my shoulder. He'll grab their shoulder, and they'll lead him. They gave him a cane. He has an actual real cane that you see the elderly walk with, so he has that cane. But yeah, he's doing really, really well. Like I said, he looked amazing. He said that he's strong. He said, but what makes him strong, he said, when you and Ebonee called my wife and gave her the report on yesterday, he said, I could feel it in her voice. Because Mrs. Cosby, everything you see, legal-wise strategy, PR strategy, that's coming from Mrs. Cosby. And she's running the entire show.
Yeah. You mentioned Mr. Cosby's cane. You mentioned the last visit you were here, the last interview, that they actually mailed the cane he had back. Right. So now he has a state-issued cane. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yes, he had a special cane. It was made from a particular wood, but it wasn't allowed. It was more of a whipping cane. Right. So I think that would have caused some issues. Right. Excuse me. At the facility. So they gave him just a regular state issue cane. It's very standard, very normal, nothing special. Just rounded at the top, got the rubber stub on the end, wooden. Plain.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Right.
Yeah. So how is he adjusting? And you mentioned in terms of that some of the other, you said residents, that
Right.
Mr. Cosby is referring to them as residents. He feels safe?
He feels safe. And he talked about, I said, well, how's your bed? He said, look, it's about this thick steel. He said, you lay down on it, and your feet may hang off of just a little bit. He said, but I'm fine. He said, I am fine. He said, the toilet is steel. He gave detailed descriptions of his cell, of the people he's running into, inmates. Some he mentioned by name, Battle, and different inmates that he mentioned by name that he's getting to meet along the way.
And let me ask this question, because I want to be real clear.
Right.
Mr. Cosby, not that he's happy, but he's adjusted. I mean, you all are sounding as if he's really doing well because of the perceptions of what we think about prison, and those who said lock him up, lock him up, lock him up. He appears to be doing very well and adjusting very well.
I think the perception that most major media wants to continue to have is of this disgraced person. He is not disgraced. He still maintains his innocence. He knows that, again, his team is out here fighting. He has no reason to feel any less strength than what he does right now. So, no, he is not in a 5-star hotel. Yes, he is in prison. But that has not changed his mindset. That has not broken his spirit. And I think for us to think that prison does that to anyone and breaks everyone's spirit, I don't think it does. I think there are people who go in there, they do their time. There are things that happen. There are adjustments that happen, but everyone's spirit isn't broken because of that, especially when you know you're innocent.
One of the things you mentioned too, Andrew, is how he related his activism and from the 60s and the 70s, and how he has related that to his current situation.
Right.
Can you expound on that?
Right. Well, he talked about spending time with Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Nelson Mandela. And he told the story of how Nelson Mandela went blind. He was working in a lime cave, and he said the sunlight from hitting the lime rock blinded him. He said, they all told me about their struggles. He said, now they said, look, Bill, if you continue to live long enough, you're going to have to face this issue, too, of civil rights. So the 60s are the 21st century when you look at it. When you see what they have done to him, as he said today, we asked him the question. We said, we're going on this show. We're giving Frankie Darcell the exclusive. And what do you want her to know? He said that these are the United States of America. And in the United States of America, it's about truth and facts, if allowed. Only if allowed. He said the problem is they're trying to not allow me to get the truth and facts out. And he said, by you all going on her show, I want her to know. I want her listeners to know. I want people on social media to know. Look at the truth and facts. I shouldn't be here, but I'm here. And this is an amazing experience because I'm going to be able to write about it. I'm going to be able to write music about it, this experience, and show people that, look, man, it's up here. They can't take what's up here away. They can put you away. That's fine. It's an institution. But they cannot take this away. And that's what they haven't taken away from him.
And on top of that, just the fact that this is bigger than just him. When you look at what's going on right now in this country, sexual assault has become the only crime that a person can be convicted on with no evidence and no proof. You have a person like Mr. Cosby who has been found guilty, and we have seen several things in the media transpire with major people, Kavanaugh being one, Harvey Weinstein being another. The judicial system is not the same for people of color as it is for everyone else. And that's what this is about. It's not just about Bill Cosby. This is about civil rights. This is about the fact that if people do not start paying attention, a lot more freedoms and a lot more justices can be taken away just because someone said it. You just had a situation where a woman accused a 3-year-old of sexually assaulting her. 3-year-old black boy. And again, the climate that we're in is too toxic, and it's bigger than him, and he understands that, and he's prepared for what's coming next.
And what
yes.
And what the media has done, they have created this race and sex war in America. The media has fueled that. When you look, going back expounding on Kavanaugh, think about it. You heard one word during the entire hearings from Republicans: contemporaneous evidence. He provided evidence of his childhood, a calendar of dates. We did the same thing.
Proof that Mr. Cosby wasn't even in Philadelphia.
Statute of limitations had expired. We provided that contemporaneous evidence. It was ignored. It was aborted by Judge O'Neill because they knew what they wanted. They provided no evidence, zero evidence, no DNA, no hair samples, nothing. And Mr. Cosby settled out of court, waived his Fifth Amendment rights, and he's now spending time in a jail.
Now, you're making reference to the settlement.
Right.
And the Constant.
$3.8 million.
And
what the case is all about, Constant.
Right.
This case is only about Andrea Constant from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you say to people who say, particularly as African Americans, that you're making race the issue? You're making race the issue.
Look,
how do you respond to that?
I respond by saying, first off, white people have always wanted to give black people the race card. We did not create the race card. The race card was created when they put us on the slave ship, and sailed across the Middle Passage and brought us over here on American soil. That's when the race card was created. The race card was created when they drafted the Constitution before any amendments were put in. That's when the race card was created. The race card is being created every day. It's being created right now in front of our own eyes, when you could take a man and bring him to trial twice for having an affair. That's the race card.
Mm-hmm. On top of that, for me as a black woman, I look at it in terms of a movement that is not inclusive for people that look like me. The women's suffrage movement, women that don't look like me, white women, were able to vote in 1920. We did not get that right until later. They fought for equal wages and equal rights, but not for our mothers who worked in their houses, cleaning their floors, scrubbing their dishes, taking care of their children. This is not about equal for all women. It's about when they are tired of their situation and they want something different, then there's a movement. And then they take passionate black women, they put them at the forefront of it, and they use their passion to fuel their movement.
All right. Quandria asked the question, why did he settle if he is innocent? And I think she's cross-referencing the settlement versus the actual trial and the charges and the trial.
Right.
So there was an actual civil case before the criminal trial came around. And the settlement is because of who he is. You have to understand this is a person who's ready to get on with their life. They're trying to get past this infidelity within their marriage. And so him and his wife decided that wasn't a Bill Cosby decision. That was a Cosby's decision.
And then also you got to look at, as she mentioned, it was never a criminal matter because Bruce Castor said she gave inconsistencies in her testimony.
And it was a consensual relationship.
It was a consensual relationship. So what Bruce Castor said, I don't have the evidence. You guys haven't shown me anything where he's done something wrong. So he sent Mr. C into a civil litigation. And he said, look, part of the civil litigation is that you have to waive your Fifth Amendment rights. You have to sit in a deposition. And once it's all over, we'll come up with a number. The number was $3.8 million. Her mother got $20,000 paid by American media, part of the settlement deal, and it will all go away and no criminal charges will ever be brought against you. But because you have a judge who has issues, Judge O'Neill, with Castor, because he was having an affair with Castor's ADA at the time in 2005. Castor beat him out of his election campaign to be district attorney in 2005. So he had a bone to pick. Then you come 12, 13 years later, you got now Kevin Steele, who runs a Willie Horton-style campaign that if you elect me, I will bring Bill Cosby to justice. And he was reprimanded by then district attorney Risa Vertra Furman, who's now a judge. So it's a crock pot of corruption in Montgomery County. And that's what we're exposing, and that's why this is a civil rights issue. That's why we don't have to invoke race and sexism. They did it. They brought it to the forefront. We didn't.
And just to be very clear, just to answer that question a little bit better, Bruce Castor is the one who initiated the civil case. There is a documentation where he is on the stand testifying to the fact that he knew he didn't have any evidence, but Andrea Constand's best option was to sue Mr. Cosby so that she could make millions. And you can find that in quotes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we are live. We're going to be going live back on the air at WDASFM.com. I'm Frankie Darcell. Andrew Wyatt and Ebonee Benson, my guests of Purpose PR. They are the public relations representatives for Mr. Cosby, just about an estimated 21 days in and giving us this exclusive. So we appreciate you talking with me and our listeners. And it's just not about me. It's really about, it's about the audience having an opportunity to go one-on-one. And let me just say as well, they were not shy and said that there are no boundaries on the questions that we will answer. So please feel free to go online and post your question. They're only going to be with me today for an hour. They've got to catch a flight. So I thank you guys for spending this time with us today. So I'm going to read, we are reading and monitoring your questions, and I'll take your questions and your phone calls. So we're going to go on the air right now. I think I have about 30 seconds. So we're doing Facebook Live, and we are on the air as well. Hello to everybody. Let me see. Let me turn my headphones up. There I am. There we go. Philly's best R&B and throwback to 105.3 WDAS. Frankie Darcell with you. And we are in the studio with Andrew Wyatt and Ebonee Benson of Purpose PR. They are representing Mr. Bill Cosby, 21 days in. And outside of his attorneys, as of Friday, the two of you are the only individuals that have been able to get in and see Mr. Cosby. What is it that you want people to know moving forward? Because we do have the appellate part of the case that's happening right now. But right now, he is scheduled to be in prison from 3 to 10 years. Right. So moving forward, what is it that you want people to know?
We want people to know that he's strong. We want people to know that he's doing exceptionally well. All of the rumors that you hear, when you see it on Radar online, please just go past it. It's not accurate because you know it's scandalous writing, it's egregious writing of people who just want to create some type of hype. Mm-hmm.
So those things that some of the things that have been out there, we saw the Saturday Night Live skit. That's the Saturday Night Live skit. But there were two other stories that have been out there. One something about a chicken patty and
a hot dog. No one.
Did that happen?
Never happened. Never happened to him. But we want people to really know that this man is an American citizen, and he hasn't been treated like an American citizen. They throw him behind bars for infidelity. No rape. He never was accused or charged with sexual assault, indecent sexual assault, but he never was accused or charged with rape. Mm-hmm. Not 60 women. This case was about...
But he now has to register for the rest of his life based on the testimony from the psychologist that is now what he will be labeled as.
Right, sexual violent predator. Mm-hmm. An 81-year-old blind man, a sexual violent predator in the community wasn't safe.
An expert, by the way, who never sat down with him in person. Mm-hmm. The expert that the district attorney used gave her analysis based off the information from the case. Mm-hmm. She read about additional witnesses that were being added, all these other accusations. She gave her, in my opinion, her expertise was biased. Again, she did not sit down physically with Mr. Cosby and evaluate.
As we close on the air, we're definitely online at WDASFM.com. We are live on Facebook. 877-894-1053. Thank you for No Boundaries. They came to me and said, we want to do this interview, and there are no boundaries, there are no set-up questions, and there are no questions we're going to ask you to ask us at all, and they are opening the mics for you to answer your questions, so we want to hear from you. Thank you for that. Thank you for coming here to WDAS to share that. I know people around the world wanted this interview, so thank you for coming here.
No, Frankie, only you and your listeners, we want to thank them. We want to thank them for their continued support, and keep fighting, because this is your son. This is your daughter. This is someone in your family, your father, your uncle. Keep fighting, because they're trying to change the laws. And if they could get Bill Cosby, they could get you too.
All right, we're talking online at WDAS on Facebook. Up next, more Philly's best R&B and throwbacks. I got your concert tickets as well with 105.3 WDAS. Yeah, so when we have these kind of conversations, and we're going to wrap up, thank you so much, and we're going to wrap up in just a few minutes as well about, let's get off live radio, live radio.
Right.
to have a conversation about just the whole process. And as we get ready to wrap up, we've got about 15 minutes with our guests. And just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to discuss what you wanted to discuss. Clearly, in terms of Mr. Cosby, you say he's doing well.
He's doing well.
He's adjusting. You said he has really just thought back to even the days of civil rights where he walked with some literally incredible big names of individuals. And
people we talk about all the time in history, from you look at MLK, Malcolm X, you look at Nelson Mandela, you look at the Kennedys, you knew them. Those people who played a significant, Lyndon B. Johnson, who played a significant role in civil rights in the movement and for black people. And he gets calls and from various celebrities.
Yeah, and I'm not asking you either who has called him. Was he able to take phone calls, and have there been, especially somebody as iconic as Mr. Cosby?
Not take phone calls.
Yeah, he can't receive. You can't receive phone
but his
calls.
His assistants have been.
Yeah, people, and I don't want to know who, but people have reached out because there are those that will say there's a list of individuals.
And it keeps growing every day with people calling,
yeah,
adding their
that's
names.
not working over there. So, and I'm not asking you for that, but because the first trial we saw that there were the names of some individuals that did come to the first trial, but there are people who are high-profile people that are supporting Mr. Cosby.
Supporting, right, definitely supporting,
and never have stopped supporting.
Yeah, that's what the public and the media wants. The media wants the public to see and think that all his friends have walked away. No one has walked away from him. They called, if they're not calling me, they found Ebonee's number. They called his assistant in California. And like I said, the list is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. It never stops.
All right.
Well, public opinion is important for the media. That's why the case was able to go the way that it did. Due process is severely affected when you are holding court in public opinion. Yeah. So if they can continue to show that Mr. Cosby has no support, that was one of the things they kept making a point to say even during the trials. Well, there's no one sitting on his side, there's no one walking in with him. That's not how his support is set up. And again, there doesn't have to be some type of public acceptance of the type of support he receives in his life for people to feel that people still care. Yeah, people still love him.
What's so interesting to me, Frankie, we were going back, Ebonee mentioned Harvey Weinstein. When you look at articles about him, you don't hear people say disgraced Hollywood mogul, scum Hollywood mogul. But that's what they write about Bill Cosby.
I don't understand that.
That's what they write about him. Now the media is funny how they come around now and everybody cares about him now because it's all about a story now. To know how well he's doing. No, we wanted to come to someone who has integrity, ethics in journalism, and who just wants to hear the facts and the truth. And that's all we care about. And your listeners want that information. So that's why we chose to give this exclusive opportunity to you.
All right, so the holidays are coming. You mentioned Miss Cosby earlier. How is she and the family, if I could ask, if that's part of the boundary?
I will. It's definitely within the boundaries. Yeah. One of the things Mr. Cosby said, I'll use his word, she is empowered. This has empowered her. Not that she's never been any less empowered. I think people have seen Mrs. Cosby fight for a lot of different injustices throughout her life. But this right here is a shining moment for her and her husband now because it's not someone else, it's them. And so she's strong, she's focused. As Andrew said, she's steering the ship. She has found the legal team that works the best for the vision she has for vindication for Mr. Cosby.
All right, great. We have a phone call. Can we take a phone call? This is Desiree. Desiree is calling from the Mayfair section of Philadelphia. Desiree, hello, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. How are you?
I'm doing well. Bernard, let's turn that volume up just a little bit more. Great. Your question or your comment. First of all, say hello to my guests, Andrew Wyatt and Ebonee Benson.
Hello, Mr. Andrew and Miss Ebonee. How are you?
How you doing, Desiree? How you doing? Thanks for calling.
I'm okay. You're welcome.
Your question or your comment?
Oh, yes. My comment is in regards to Mr. Bill Cosby and some of the concerns that was raised was that anytime there has been a traumatic experience, one, we're taught to call 911 immediately. Two, not to return back to the scene of the alleged incident. So why would you keep returning to the alleged place that the incident allegedly happened at? And two, he's entitled to a jury of his peers. Three, it was very biased because the scale was very imbalanced. He was not allowed to be able to talk to the expert for himself so that they can assess him properly, do due diligence of process. So it's biased, it's unjust. He needs to be free. He should not have to register. He's not a repeat offender. He's not a rapist or any of those things. And if he never been locked up before or had a criminal record, why wasn't he just given probation like many other people who's in the same situation that he's in?
All right. Well, thank you for
Thank
your
you,
question.
Desiree.
Thank you. That's all I can
appreciate
say.
that.
Thank
The
you.
phone lines are open on the air at 215-263-1053. If you like your phone call to go through, I see all of the hearts now, the emojis on Facebook, and 877-894-1053. So even if you're watching on Facebook, you can call and speak to my guest live in the studio. This is from Thomas Davis. He says, how was the DA able to use the same evidence that his predecessor was not able to use?
That's the question. That's the question that we're all asking. He shouldn't have been able to use any of the evidence because at that time, how could you overturn something when you were not even a DA? That doesn't make sense. You know, Castor's a DA. So are you going to go back and undo all of his gifts that he gave to people, saying I wouldn't bring charges out? He's giving deals. If you're going to do that with Mr. Cosby, you have to go back to in all of his cases that he oversaw and overturn them.
And also, his predecessor wasn't even allowed to testify.
Right.
His predecessor was considered not a credible witness by Judge O'Neill. So that's just another question raised. As you said, how can you use evidence that wasn't allowed? How can you guys unseal something that was already sealed? And then also, how can you bar a former district attorney from testifying by saying he's not credible? This man was in this position for years. No one ever raised any issues with his credibility until now.
So now let's go look at all his cases and go look at all the cases where he gave deals. If you're gonna have this standard for Mr. Cosby, you have to have this standard for all of his prior cases.
All right. So we're going to take a few more questions. I think we're on the countdown now to about 7.5 minutes. So get your questions in as soon as possible. Again, my guests, Andrew Wyatt and Ebonee Benson, thank you both so much for coming in and taking every question. You mentioned gifts, and we talked about this in the very first interview. In terms of gifts, there were those who had rescinded some of the degrees to Mr. Cosby.
Right.
When you checked the mail, were there any checks?
No checks came back to us.
So in cases
everybody
where,
kept the money.
I was just wondering if they were in the mailbox.
No. They kept the money. His money was clean enough for them to keep, but you want to rescind him.
But his name is dirty.
Dirty. So but
So just want to be clear. So some of the colleges.
Now all of the colleges that rescinded him never sent a check back and never returned any money. And we have asked them for it.
Not one.
Not one.
Not one.
No.
So out of all of, and you would estimate maybe
Not
about
half
how many?
of the money,
Not half
not
of the
a
money,
quarter
not
of
a
the
quarter
money,
not a fourth.
not a donation.
No, they didn't make a donation to his name to another organization and said, we don't want it. They kept the money. I'm talking about not just HBCUs, but integrated schools as well. Temple, Fordham University, University of Pennsylvania, all of these universities that he had given money to, no one returned the money.
And they rescinded the degrees because of
The
charges and the guilty
before charges were ever brought.
People started
They started rescinding degrees when women started coming out. Before
with
charges, with no evidence.
No additional cases.
They have been
These are
rescinding
just
degrees
allegations.
since fall of 2014. Rescinded him from everything with no evidence. We sent letters to universities, our attorneys, and said, how can you, law schools, Fordham, how can you rescind him when we all are taught about due process? No response.
So not
one little red penny.
No.
all right.
We want our money.
So So we're going to take just a few more phone calls as well. And I did want to make sure, again, thank you for coming in and having this conversation with our audience today. We appreciate that. Thank you guys always for watching and being so engaging. And the questions are loading up as well on Facebook. This is from Anthony. Anthony says, how could she take money, then testify against Mr. Cosby? That is Anthony.
This is the system. This is the country we live in. That's how. They make the rules differently for people that look like us. There's no way that she should have been able to come back and make any claims criminally against Mr. Cosby. But when you have a system that is designed, when you have a district attorney, a judge, her own personal attorneys, and the media complicit, that's how it was able to happen.
And it just shows you that the judicial system is an elitist white male system. It's not for black people. Because think about it, it just shows it was about color. She's not even an American citizen. And she could come over here and just make a claim and an allegation, strike it rich, and then come back 13, 14 years later and strike it rich again by rescinding the agreement that she agreed to, say, hey, everything is done. It's dissolved. It's over with. What's the settlement?
And there was no red
million.
penny given back from that either.
Right. No
All
money.
right. So as we wrap up, and we've got about 3 minutes. I'm trying to get it all in.
Right.
I am trying to get it all in. So where are we now, and what is the next?
Next step, attorneys Brian Perry and Barb Zimlock, she's the appellate attorney, they're working on the appeal. They're getting the appeal together. They're working on some other things to try to get him on the ground, bail-related things. But we will be having meetings with them this Thursday to go over all of the details of everything that's going to be released sometime next week.
Mm-hmm.
Same, and in the process, keeping his spirit strong, us going to see him and checking in with him, waiting on those phone calls, and continuing to do what we're doing right now. If we can have more opportunities like this where we can tell the truth, like Mr. Cosby said, if it's allowed. For the entire 34 months of this case, the truth about what's really been going on has not been allowed. Mm-hmm. There have been versions of the truth. There have been pieces of the truth. There have even been exasperations of the truth. But the bulk of it has not been revealed. And that's where we are, and that's what we'll do going forward.
And also, I want to just say a special thank you to Phoenix Prison and the guards and the incredible staff that he talks about, that they're just doing their job. They have to follow things by the book. Mm-hmm. Those are the rules. And he's very appreciative of them and the residents there. When we were leaving, the residents noticed Ebonee and I, and they came over and hugged and said, hey, great job. And they knew our names. Yeah. And they said, and then they screamed out in front of all the other guards, Bill should not be here.
Wow.
So it was great. And
I got to tell you, and to all of those who are there, thank you for listening to the show as well. Several messages as well from those who are actually there, who listened to the headline show at 7 a.m. We did a throwback on that and replayed that interview. There. So I thank you once again for this opportunity and look forward to keeping engaged, especially when you see something like this and as major a case as this is. I like to be able to talk to those people who are literally at the table.
It means a lot to have this platform. Your platform is amazing. The people here are amazing. You have an amazing show, amazing listeners, even on social media. And we just want to thank them for the opportunity as well.
Good. And I've got an amazing staff, so let me just thank Renard as well and Sydney. We all, no matter how, we make it work.
Y'all make it work. You do a great
we make
job.
It work. So let me just shout them out as well. And let me also say, when the time comes, and if the time comes, that Ms. Cosby is ever going to speak, please know that I would love to sit down and have a one-on-one.
I could definitely say it right here. You would be the first show, if it should happen, that we would encourage her to come to.
Good. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Closing comments? Anything that I did not ask you want to close with?
No, I just want to encourage listeners, viewers, to continue to search for the truth. Don't be so easily swayed by vicious propaganda perpetuated by the American media. Be strong, be fierce about your people, be fierce about what we have to do in order to become better as a whole.
And I just want to say, our people, black people, are a perspicacious group of group of people. We're smart, we're intelligent, and we don't have to let someone tell us who to hate and how to hate. We don't need that. For so long, black people have let white people tell them who to hate, how to hate, when to hate, and turn on your own. But you can't do that to them. You don't see them letting you run Harvey Weinstein's name through the mud. His reputation. You don't see degrees being rescinded for him. His name is on a lot of stuff.
Can I just be the angel's advocate? And as I said, I was going to let them go.
Right.
I have to literally let them go, but I have to ask you this. So, race is an issue in this trial.
In this country.
In this country, which has morphed into this trial.
Yes.
Mr. Cosby has benefited from those multi-relationships, clearly of white folk, as much as he has a black folk. What is the difference now to discuss race?
I think the envy has always been there. You know, they have not stopped coming for him. This has been going on for 50 plus years. He was on the Nixon list.
Attacks on Mr. Cosby.
He was named a communist on the Nixon list because he refused to perform in the White House for Nixon. Him and Dick Gregory was on that list, and a host of other people. This is nothing new to them. This type of dictatorship.
And Mr. Cosby is aware of that.
He's
is what I'm saying.
And Mrs. Cosby.
And what I was going to say is race was never not an issue for him. Again, he started in a fashion that is a lot different from where we are now in today's society. But he had a lot to overcome. Race has never not been an issue for him. And even throughout his career, he searched for a way to humanize all races, but that never meant that he was no longer a black man. That never meant that he no longer had any issues, he no longer had any problems. Bigger levels, bigger devils.
And look, when you think about it, when you think about race, think about him being the first black to win an Emmy and I Spy. And they wouldn't show I Spy in certain states in the South. Race has always been an issue. This black man starring with Robert Koch on a highly rated show, and he was the first black to win an Emmy, says a lot about race.
And also, race has not been an issue because he has always empowered his race. He has always empowered his race. And when we look at history, unification of our people is a problem for the powers that be.
Right.
I promise I'm giving you your closing line, and I'm not going to say anything else. But that question crossed my mind because I heard a listener out there saying something, and I think I'm half screamed. But go ahead. Your final close, and this won't be their last time visiting us.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, but I just want to leave people. You know, Mr. Cosby is a civil rights icon. He has helped millions of men and boys across this country. He has used his celebrity, as Ebonee stated, to humanize all races, all genders, and empowerment is what he lived for. As he said today, this is a revolution. This is the real revolution of vindication for him, the vindication for all people, black people that look like us who are locked up illegally, and for us not to become a victim, because we were not born into this world as victims.
All right.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. I so appreciate Mr. Andrew Wyatt and Ebonee Benson for being our guests from Purpose PR. Look at those questions. They are.
Oh, wow.
Look at that.
Wow. Look at. Wow.
I would make you miss your flight.
Oh, no.
You see those questions are coming in like crazy.
It's getting cold up here, y'all.
We got to get back to Alabama.
We got to get back to Alabama. Thank you. Safe travels. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Much love, Frankie.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. All right. I'm going to get Sydney to shut that off before we move, because we're crazy when we move around on Facebook Live. And so bye. Wave bye to everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
See you guys
Facebook
later.
Live. Thanks, Frankie Darcell Show.